Alright battlers, today we're taking a look at one of the most legendary Pokemon ever created. This is Charizard in the Timeless Cup. Charizard slashes and burns its way through the competition. Here we go with the Charizard mirror match to start off the video. So trainers, if you're curious about winning this mirror match, if your opponent goes straight Dragon Claw and you go straight Blast Burn, you will win. If you go straight Dragon Claw and your opponent goes straight Blast Burn, you will lose. However, if you bait with the Dragon Claw and then land the Blast Burn, you win out with the biggest margins. If you go straight Blast Burn, you end with, I think, 21 hit points roughly, and then if you go with the Dragon Claw bait and then land the Blast Burn, you actually win with 61 hit points. So really big difference there. Getting into the games here, I do have Charizard and Victreebel at my disposal. I do bring in that Charizard and get one more Fire Spin worth of energy, and then I go into Victreebel. So in comes my opponent's Charizard. I'm just trying to work down this Charizard as quickly as possible. I do force him to spend his energy, which is really good for us. That Dragon Claw will bring down Victreebel, then I bring out my Charizard here. So I'm hoping to use my Fire Spins to bring it down, and that way I can unleash all of this energy on the Pokemon in the back. So the last Pokemon is Blossom, and that poor little thing is so outmatched by the big red boy here. We're going to fire off a Dragon Claw and then another Dragon Claw here. I'm still expecting the shield. So we get it there, and I go for one more Dragon Claw. I did have the Blast Burn loaded, trainers. I think that's something you need to work on with your Charizard play, because you never know when you'll get that Blast Burn and you really need it, but you go for the Dragon Claw out of habit. Here we go with Beedrill versus Haunter. My opponent is actually going to bail out immediately in favor of Lapras. So Lapras would win that matchup. I switch here into Quagsire. Quagsire is a mud boy that's not getting a whole lot of love early on, but I really think it's a great Pokemon. It does have access to that Stone Edge, and we saw kind of the reverse of this in my Lapras feature, where I was playing Lapras and I faced off against a Quagsire. I did learn from my study that this Stone Edge does a tremendous amount of damage, 107 damage, depending on IVs, but just the general consensus is 107. Which Lapras has 180 HP roughly, so it takes a huge chunk of Lapras. I'm going to allow my Quagsire to fall there, and then I think my option's over. I know this Lapras is very weak, so I bring in my Beedrill to get off one more Poison Jab. In comes Whiscash, and I'm honestly not familiar with this matchup. I think Beedrill does okay here, but I'm going to fire off the Sludge Bomb to try to weaken this Whiscash. This seems like a pretty, I don't want to say an even match, but a pretty close match. I'm going to land another Sludge Bomb here. I'm not sure if Aerial Ace is the right way to go, but we're working that Whiscash down into the red. I'm actually going to allow this Mud Bomb through, and Beedrill will fall. In comes Charizard, my final Pokemon. So we're going to learn here how well Whiscash does against Charizard. So Charizard is the only flying type allowed in the Timeless Cup. It is flying and fire, and look at that, not very effective. It was I guess neutral damage, because fire doesn't take well to ground, but the flying helps it resist it. So we take a couple of Mud Bombs, but I'm just loading up energy. In comes Haunter here. I'm going to bait with the Dragon Claw, and we get the shield, and in comes the Blast Burn, and you know nothing survives the Blast Burn. Haunter is going to fall there, and we win that game as well. Taking a look at the next game, I will lead Kanto Muck into Drapion. So this Drapion is running Ice Fang. I do think that is the popular pick at this point in the meta. I'm going to go here for the Thunder Punch against this Drapion. It does land doing a little chunk of damage there. I'm expecting an Aqua Tail here from Drapion, and that's what it is. I do think Drapion would win this matchup, but my opponent bails out into Dragonair. So Dragonair's Dragon Breaths are going to work us down really quick. Trainers, you have to be quick on the swaps in this cup, especially when it comes to dragons and Razor Leafers. If you don't get your Mud Boy out of there, the Razor Leafer will eat it up, and if you don't get a weakened Pokemon out of there, the Dragonair's Dragon Breath will just melt it down. So I bring in my own Dragonair to resolve that issue. In comes that Drapion with the Ice Fang, so not good for us. I'm going to fire off an Aqua Tail here, which he does decide to shield. I do have two shields though, and Charizard, so I'm going to try to fast move down this Drapion, but I know that I can't take an Aqua Tail. It would do a massive amount of damage. So we do get rid of that Drapion. In comes Blossom, and this time, trainers, I'm going to go straight for the Blast Burn, probably expecting a shield bait. My opponent does not shield, and that's GG's. Taking a look at this game, I will lead Victreebel into Celio. I did a feature on Victreebel and all the ways to use it. As you can probably tell, this is my lead scenario, and it worked out very well. I bring in my Charizard against Meganium, and I'm going to shield this first attack. It is the Earthquake, and Earthquake is the right move to use when you're playing Meganium facing off against Charizard, because look at this, trainers. Charizard can only take one of these Earthquakes and survive. So if your opponent gets to a second Earthquake, you are in big trouble. We did burn that shield, but look at this spam, trainers. We were firing off Dragon Claws against this Dragonair. One shield. Call it two shields. Dragon Claw is so fast. I'm actually going to fire one more fire spin. We get to a third Dragon Claw. Both shields and a massive amount of damage dealt to this Dragonair. Charizard is an awesome Pokemon in the right situations. Its Dragon Claw gives it so much flex coverage against the Dragon types in the Timeless Cup. I definitely think you're going to see a lot of trainers running with Big Red. In comes Celio, and I do have my Kingdra. Nothing survives this outrage, so I'm going to fire this off. It does bring that Celio very weak, and then Victreebel comes in to wrap things up with a Razor Leaf. Going to the next game, I will lead the Ninja Sudowoodo into this Purified Dragonair. I do have to watch out for the Aqua Tails, but I do have the Rock Slide already armed and ready to go. So I do fire that off and bring that Dragonair deep into the red. Sudowoodo is a great surprise. If your opponent is not ready for it, it is devastating. So we counter it down, and then I'm waiting his next Pokemon. It does turn out to be Venomoth. So Venomoth, again, not a super favorable matchup. Even though that Confusion does so much damage to most Pokemon, that Sudowoodo can take it. So I'm not able to get to that Rock Slide, unfortunately, but I do bring in Charizard. I know this will be probably a silver win, so I am going to shield. It's just the Poison Fang bait, though. So it didn't work out for me there, but Venomoth's going to fire off the silver win here, and it's not very effective. Again, the Flying type asset gives Charizard a huge advantage in a lot of these matchups. My opponent is going to go for the Dragon Claw, which is going to really hurt this Kingdra. I'm pushing for the Outrage, and we don't quite get there. This Dragon Claw is going to bring us down, but Charizard is still standing. I'm going to go here for one Dragon Claw. I probably could have done one more Fire Spin if I was counting correctly, but luckily we're able to get to double Dragon Claws. We're going to bring down this Charizard, and then here comes Venomoth. The trainers, this battle comes right down to the wire, but the Fire Spins win it for us. Taking a look at this game, I will lead Sudowoodo again, this time into Shelgon. So Shelgon does have that Dragon Breath asset. In comes Lapras. I'm going to fire off a few Ice Shards and then Kingdra. So I think about going for the Skull Bash here. I think as trainers get better at counting with Lapras, they are going to shield that Skull Bash more consistently. We don't quite get there until the very end, and I'm not going to burn a shield here on the Lapras, instead electing to let it fall. So I am down a Pokemon, but that's not a huge deal. I did great damage to the first lead Pokemon, and then this Kingdra is about to catch this Rock Slide, which it does. My opponent still does have two shields. In comes Dragonair. I want to get to one more Rock Slide, and my wish is granted. Sudowoodo is going to throw this attack, and it does get shielded. So my last Pokemon, again, is Charizard. Charizard comes in here, and I'm trying to go for these Dragon Claws. In comes the Shelgon with Charged Energy, and I have to defend this. It would be a Dragon Pulse that would have KO'd. I'm going to go here for the Dragon Claw. I still have to work through these defenses here, but we do land that one. Out comes Dragonair, and I'm going to shield here because I know I can't take the Aqua Tail, and I'm hoping to get to double Dragon Claw, but we don't quite make it, and Charizard falls short in this round. Taking a look at the next game, I will lead my Victreebel into Whiscash. Obviously, excellent matchup for me. In comes Charizard, and I have to get out of there quickly. I'm going to bring in Dragonair. Even though that Dragon Claw is going to hurt pretty badly, I do think Dragonair is a great soft coverage option. As you can tell there, the Dragon Breaths worked it down really quickly, and then the Aqua Tail would have KO'd, so we did earn that shield as well. I'm going to defend Dragonair here, confident that I can use the Dragon Breaths to bring down this Charizard, and we just barely pull it off. So Dragonair has some energy, but then again, you have to be quick on your swaps, trainers. I don't get to that Aqua Tail in time. The Dragonair brings us down. In comes Whiscash, and this is exactly what I wanted. I'm going to line up my Victreebel here and save my shield for that Charizard in the back. So we do bring down that Whiscash. I don't think I'm able to get to a Acid Spray. No, I'm not. So that's okay. I do bring in Charizard with the Dragon Claw locked and loaded. We fire that one off, and Dragonair is going to get off a charge attack against us. I'm going to allow this one through, and it is returned. So we called the bait, which is really, really huge for us. I'm going to fire off one more Dragon Claw, and it will bring down Dragonair to win. Taking a look at this game, I will lead my Charizard into Victreebel, so a great position for us to be in. In comes Whiscash. I'm going to gain a little more energy here and actually allow the Mud Bomb through. In this battle, I really wanted to show you how I'm working on my swaps. I'm trying to see how many Fire Spins I can get in and how I can time those with the Mud Shots to avoid the charge attacks. So I do have a ton of energy loaded on Charizard. I'm going to bring in Victreebel, and because my opponent is switch locked, this is not a bad situation for me at all. Take down Whiscash really quickly, and I'm hoping to get to the Acid Spray here, and we just barely pull it off. So I am running double poison on Victreebel. I did have a viewer point that out in a previous video. I do really enjoy it because I feel like that Razor Leaf does great work against the waters and the dual water ice types, where the poison is going to give you tons of coverage against the grass. So I bring in Charizard here and I fire off the Dragon Claw against Lapras. So very, very good switching by my opponent, but I have a Blast Burn loaded and ready to go. I fire off the Blast Burn here and it does get shielded as well. So very aggressive, but we're able to earn both shields, and then we get to another Dragon Claw. So we're going to work down that Lapras a little bit, and my last Pokemon is Lapras. So Lapras with 2 shields, trainers, is really, really stinking hard to beat. It's going to be really tough for my opponent to come back from this, especially after I hit this defense boost right here with Skull Bash. That is going to bring that Lapras way down into the red. One more Ice Shard will finish off the Victreebel, and we take that game. Going to the next game, I will lead Charizard into Kanto Muck. Of course, the red flag that goes off in your head is Thunder Punch. You cannot afford to get hit by that, so I was able to time my swap there, 3 Fire Spins, and jump into that Dragonair. Dragonair excels as a safe swap in this cup, as does Lapras, which was my video I did yesterday. I do fire off the Aqua Tail here against the Kanto Muck to bring it pretty low, and then Thunder Punch is only going to do a marginal amount of damage. So Dragonair does bring it down. My opponent still has 2 shields, but he's down a Pokemon. In comes Lapras that just erases our Dragonair. I bring in little Gloom, and Gloom is going to have its moment in the sun. I know this is a Surf because there were only a few Ice Shards fired off. Not very effective damage at all. Actually, the Lapras has to get out of there. In comes Tangrowth, so such a weird, cool Pokemon to use. Again, I battle against some great trainers, guys. This is 6'7" Kevin, and he has some awesome Pokemon in his disposal. So I fire off a Dragon Claw here and double bait those shields out of Tangrowth, and I'm hoping to farm it down here, which I'm able to do, which is really, really good. I know one more Fire Spin will win it. The Ancient Power would be deadly if the shields were down, and I have a Blast Burn ready to take down this Lapras. Going into the last game of the video, I will lead Victreebel into that Drapion, so that Ice Fang is not going to treat Victreebel very well. I go into my safe swap, Lapras, and out comes Victreebel on the opposing side. So again, Lapras is such a beast in this cup. My opponent did shield, but if he did not shield, that Surf would have worked him down very low, deep into the red, even though he's a Grass-type Razor Leaf user. Check that out, trainers. We almost took down that Victreebel with a Water Ice type. How insane is that? So I am down a Pokemon, but I retained both of my shields. I decided to bring in Charizard. I get 1 Fire Spin worth of energy, and out comes Blaziken. So Blaziken is the other Fire-type starter that you're going to see a lot in this cup. I'm going to defend my Charizard because it is a Charizard feature video, so why not? I fire off the Blast Burn here against the Blaziken, and it does get shielded. So I was over-aggressive there. I probably could have gone without the Blast Burn. I'm going to shield this Aqua Tail from Drapion, and my hope here is to bring in Victreebel, wear down these opposing Pokemon just enough to where I can come in with Charizard and sweep things up. So in comes the crunch and out comes Charizard. I'm luckily able to farm down the Drapion with 3 Fire Spins. In comes that Blaziken, trainers, and this is going to be close. I fire off the Blast Burn and we encounter some lag. However, that Blaziken is going to survive. One more Fire Spin though will wrap it up for us. Battlers, if you're considering using Charizard as your starter Pokemon in the Timeless Cup, please leave a like. If you enjoy Charizard, but you think one Pokemon is better, or maybe 2, leave me a comment, let me know which ones. And if you really enjoyed this, subscribe and ding that Bronzong bell to get notified when a new video arrives.